Hey everybody, it's Kevin with Mix Coach. I am going live this morning and every morning this week so far, but it is only Tuesday. So I did go live Saturday, and this is an experiment, something I've always wanted to do. I feel like I'm in my at my best when I'm on the fly answering questions. So if you could do me a favor and comment below whether you're here, where you're watching from, and I would love to chat with you. This morning, a little later on, I've got a friend coming on. Hopefully, his name is Bryce Boynton. He is the audio director at Flatirons Community Church in LaFayette, Colorado. It's a church that I went to. I saw them on YouTube, and I saw a presentation that their video director, Rob McTavish, did, and I booked an airline ticket immediately. I called Rob and wanted to come see what they were doing because they do such a good job. So, Bryce and I met then when I went to see them, and we hit it off. We're two audio nerds. We love to talk gear. Bryce is a brilliant audio guy, and looking forward to talking to him a little later this morning. So, hey, if you don't mind, share this, like it, thumbs up. If you're on Facebook or on YouTube, I would appreciate the likes. And I'd appreciate just knowing that somebody's listening. Okay, cool. Well, yesterday I started a two-part series, I guess, on broadcast audio. Broadcast audio is one of those things that seems like it's a secondary thing, but in reality, it's a primary thing when it comes to video. People's attention span is much shorter if there's bad audio than if there's bad video. They'll suffer through bad video. I do it all the time. I love to watch bad videos sometimes when I am used to, when you could just flip through the channels and I would see some bad, terrible programming. I couldn't not watch it. Yeah, so your attention span is longer for bad video than it is for bad audio. So I wanted to talk to you yesterday about audio and how you can improve it. A couple of things we covered yesterday. I'm not looking at my notes. I'm just kind of going off memory. But one of the things is don't make your vocal too loud. There's an effect, not a plug-in, but there's this. What would you call it? An anomaly or whatever? It's called the McGurk Effect. I guess it is an effect. It's just not a plug-in. It's called the McGurk Effect. When you see someone's mouth moving, you hear things differently. And your eyes are related to your ears. So when you're mixing for video, you don't need to mix vocals as loud. Typically, we like to have, especially in lyric-driven music, we like to have the vocal up really high. On video, it's not that necessary because you've got the eyes to help you. So, if you're doing an audio mix for a live record and video, then you have to kind of, you have to walk the line a little bit. But as far as audio, you don't need to mix the vocals quite as loud. A little trick that I have for mixing vocals, not just in video mixing, but in any mixing, one trick that is age-old trick, but it works, is to pull your studio volume down quite low, so low that any conversation would probably disrupt it and make you not be able to hear any detail at all. So turn your control room volume down if you have that luxury. If you're mixing in a room, then try to pick up some headphones that will kind of seal off the sound around you. If you're mixing in the same room as as the action's going on, try to get some either noise canceling headphones, like some Bose Quiet Comfort 15s or 35s. Those are really cool. These earbuds actually work pretty good, but they're Bluetooth. You can't really hook them up. There's latency, so I don't know if I would do that. Turn the volume down really low so you can actually only hear the top portion of it. It's like the tips of the iceberg. And make sure that the tips that are sticking up are things like bass or the tonal instrument, some of the tonal instrument, but kick and snare and vocals. And you want to have them equally. If you have mostly vocals, then your vocals are probably going to be too loud when people listen to it in other environments. Also keep in mind too, that's tip number one. Number two, I think I may be going in reverse order from yesterday. Be generous, not overly generous, but be a little bit generous with the reverb. Now, you shouldn't be washy or anything like that. You should be able to say hear what people are saying pretty easily. But you should feel like they're in an environment, not singing right in your ear. Because if you don't have effects or verb on vocals, it tends to really expose them. And vocalists will complain about that, that their vocal is too loud. Vocals never complain about being too loud on a record, usually, unless they're on a broadcast mix with no reverb. And then they'll complain about being too loud. So be a little bit generous as far as verb goes. And the third thing would be keep your dynamic range tight as you can. There's something that I learned from a mastering engineer a few years ago when I was mixing. And I had been mixing at that time 20 years or 15 years or 20 years. It's been a little while ago. We were mastering a record that I had mixed, and he was showing me the difference between my peak levels and my average levels. So I don't know how to tell you exactly how to do this, but I can tell you a meter that you can use that will help you. So your peak meters will go full scale on your peak all the time. Even a finger snap will probably, will peak the meters. Your average level is how loud something feels, or it's the appearance or the how loud your vocal. Not your vocal, but how loud your mix feels. It's the RMS level, average level. And what you want to do is if your average level is low, but your peak level is high, then your mix is never going to translate the way you want it to. So keep your dynamic range kind of squashed a little bit. I see Bryce is on the line here, and we'll be looping him in just a second. Just want to finish this thought. So what you want to do is get a meter and set it to K14. Bob Katz is a mastering engineer. I think it's his name, Bob Katz. I've never said it fast like that, so it sounds kind of stage name-ish. But anyway, he came up with a concept called the Katz K12 metering or K14 metering, and that is where you keep the dynamic range within 12 dB. You keep your average up and your peaks, where they're going to be at 0. So if you'll do those three things, your broadcast mix will be better. And keep that in mind when you're doing your spoken word, your pastor or your announcements or your videos. Keep those up in that range. Keep that meter going. I can talk about that a little later. So it looks like Bryce is on the line, and let's see. Bryce.
Hey. Can you hear me?
Hey. Oh, I love it when a plan comes together, man.
Oh man, thanks for your patience.
Yeah. Oh man, thank you for coming on the I'm calling it a show, but it is what it is.
I'm super grateful to be here.
I think I recognize that room. Is that the studio at the Flatirons, or is that your studio?
We're in the broadcast room. So.
Oh, nice. Nice. I was just talking about how to improve broadcast mixes, and you're the man. Let's talk about some broadcast mixing, man. Let me recap what I was talking about just now and yesterday. Number one is keep your dynamic range in the K14 range. Try to keep your spoken word up. Second thing was show the verb to the vocals. On broadcast mixes, you don't have the room that kind of like takes away a multitude of scent. And third thing was what was the third thing? Oh, don't mix the vocals too loud. There's a thing called a McGurk effect, and I don't know if you're familiar with that terminology, where like when you see someone's mouth move, your ear compensates for that. So when you see somebody singing, it almost compensates for a couple of dB. So you don't have to mix them quite as loud as you would on a normal record, like an audio only record. Do you agree with any of that stuff, or?
Yeah, I wish I could use the McGurk effect when talking to Sherpas when I hike in the Himalayan range and try to understand the language better.
Have you done that?
No, I wish I could. But no, you're totally right with the McGurk effect. It's like, lip reading is a powerful thing for sure. And I guess that ties into the concept of how is your video being shot and how often are you in on that worship leader so that you see, clear detail in mouth movement versus when are you out wide, when are you stage wide, when are you showing bigger shots. And I think everything will always tap into the fact that at the end of the day, you have to know your music too. So like we can know everything about the K14 range and McGurk effect and all these technical terms, but like the way that you present your content, it always comes back to, do you know your music and do you know the song? Because if you're introducing the top of a song, verse 1, you obviously don't want to. You want to be on that worship leader. But if you're singing a song that everybody knows, and you're in the final chorus of it, and your lights and LED walls and everything's going crazy, and you have a much bigger effect going on and engagement by your audience, then you're going to want to highlight that. And by that time, everybody kind of knows the words. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's you mentioned first verse. That's one of the things that I try to tell people a lot is like there's we named it at Mix Coach the attack principle, and it's where an example would be if you're mixing a string section, and they do this big glissando where they start low and end up high.
Yeah.
The high notes are not hard to hear, and they're at the end. It's the beginning notes that you want to hear. And when you hear that, it's almost like that McGurk effect where once your ear latches onto it, you're good. It understands everything else. But on the flip-flop, when your ear doesn't hear the first note, it tells your brain that's not loud enough. And I have started many a rabbit chase down a trail when a client, when I was mixing for, would say, the vocals are not loud enough. And then I started asking, I would push the vocal up, just saying they know what they want. And then I would end up having the vocals too loud after that. They don't know what it was. What I figured out was that it's the attack. Mm-hmm. It's the beginning of the phrase. If you can understand the beginning of the word, then for some reason your brain processes it's loud enough. So
I call it the establishing effect. Once you establish that they're there, then it's like they're there, and our ears more like tuned to it, so we heard it, or we at least checked off a box in our mind that goes, "Oh, I hear that." That happens a lot with us in like violin or acoustic guitar. Like if we have somebody leading a song and they're on acoustic guitar, I want to hear that acoustic guitar in the beginning, so I know like, oh, as a leader, they're leading the song and they're leading from their acoustic. I think. We tend to this is a generalization, but we tend to get a comment like, oh, people don't hear acoustic guitars very much. And it's like, if I start to hear that more, then I'm going like, well, maybe we're not doing a great job of establishing that it's there in the first place. Because when you're super dense content, you're just not always going to hear the acoustic guitar. But if you've established it well, then people will not even perceive that. They may not hear it at a certain point, but they've heard it at one point, so it's there.
I love that establishing effect. I think I like it better than what the term we coined, which was the attack principle.
I just stole that from video because they talk about all the time, the establishing shot in video. It's the same exact thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Yeah.
So that just like with working with the creative team and the video team so much, they're always talking about what is our establishing shot and how do we give context to what's happening before we zoom in super close to it.
Right. That's cool. I just to kind of rewind a little bit and throw back, it was about a year and a half ago, I guess. I came over to Flatirons and hung out with you for a couple of days.
Is it only a year and a half ago?
What's that?
I feel like it was like 2.5 years ago. I don't know.
It might have been. But, I'm in a time warp right now because the last 2 weeks have felt like 2 years. So
it's... Isn't that the truth?
Right. For sure. But anyway, I learned so much from you guys. Not just
Likewise.
And not just video, but getting to work with you on mixing some of those Flatirons tunes from back in the day. I think I mixed for 9 months or so, and it was a good time, man. It was one of those things where there's a rhythm that happens, and when you get into this rhythm, it just feels really good. Where it's like Sunday files go up, you mix on Monday, and then the week just flies by, and at the end of the day, at the end of the week, you can see what you've done. It's kind of it's one of those things where when you're mixing, it's like there's nothing tangible about it usually. You mix a record, it goes on Spotify, nobody can actually pick it up, nobody buys, I won't say nobody, but not a lot of people buy CDs or albums anymore. They usually just stream it. And but just being able to see your work at the end of the week on YouTube was kind of gratifying, and it was a good time for me. I enjoyed it working with you guys.
So for all of those that are listening right now, I will say, like, so when we were in a transitional state between, like, I had a guy who was mixing here in house every week doing that, and then he left to go on a tour, which was pretty great, and we were excited for him, sent him out, and then Kevin was willing to step in because, I mean, this is one of these things, like, I feel like it's a total God thing where like Kevin just happens to be visiting and happened to have been watching, but also is, as you all know, a highly experienced mix engineer and just does a phenomenal job at doing this. So I just reached out and I'm like, hey man, I'm juggling all these things right now, and I can't do post-production mixing every week. And so that worked out really well. And even transferring sessions and files over the internet and all of that was still ended up working really well. And ultimately, like, so Flatiron Stance is like, this is something we're continuously working through and is still, I mean, it's a hot topic nowadays too, but like the role of post-production in live audio, it's like, I think there's a couple different factors. One thing is like if the band has, musicians naturally and understandably, want to put their best foot forward. They want to have the best thing they can. And if they have in their mind that anything they should play is like, should be album perfect, then you kind of, you're set up to have a lot of work in front of you. One thing that we're just constantly questioning is, like, culturally with like live music, what are people going, like, what is the number one thing that people are wanting to listen to? And so is a genuine, like, actual live, we call it live, we joke around here, it's live. Was it live or was it just live? Like, there's different levels of live.
Right.
And when it's live, you're kind of on the bleeding edge of like, okay, I'm really putting out there what I played. And then it kind of brings some additional stresses and anxieties, I guess, like you're playing in the studio, trying to make that perfect take. And so yeah, post-production, you can just kind of, like you're saying, a big room kind of covers a multitude of SIDs. Like, also post-production can take something to be great, to be really, really solid, but also, like, makes you go like, is that really what happened? Like, is that also a genuine representation of what happened? And is that effort that goes into that worth the outcome of it being better? And so it's just something that's constantly in flux. And at least for now, Flatirons has decided on that with the talent levels that we're working with and stuff, that post-production is valuable enough to do, but it's just, I don't know, it's a constant conversation.
Yeah, I was talking to a hero of mine, Keith Thomas, who is a keyboard player producer in Nashville, and in my mind, it's funny. You look at perfect productions and you go, oh man, that's just like, that just comes natural for them. They're just so good. And I thought that about Keith Thomas, and he is definitely a super talented producer, writer, keyboard player. He's a monster. But I got to hang out with him in the studio for a couple of days, and I saw just how much effort he puts into that sort of thing. I saw him, he was doing, I think it was a Vanessa Williams song that he was doing. And Bill Whittington, who was a great mixing engineer, was in the next room mixing. Keith Thomas came in there and he listened on his NS10s and he had his eyes closed and he was like, he said, "Bill, man, mix is really good. You know, pull this up right here and pull this down right here. I'm still not happy with the piano though. I'm going to go back and he was not the part. It wasn't the part. It was the sound. He was going between an upright piano and a grand piano was triggered for a live MIDI grand that he had played. He went to a friend's house and mic'd up a C7 that was MIDI. Mm-hmm. And I thought, wow, you know, we only hear the end result. We have no idea just how much work and insecurity. That's something that I tend to work through. I mean, not work through. Sometimes I don't work through it, but you don't realize on those perfect records and those perfect videos and stuff like that, just how much work and insecurity goes into that sort of thing. So, and I asked him, I said, "Man," I said, "I have a confession." He said, "What?" I said, "I thought that you sat down at a keyboard and like sparks flew from your fingertips and then those songs just came out." And he said, and this is a thing that he said that I have to deal with because there is such a fine line here. He said, once it gets out, you can't get it back. I was like, wow, that's heavy. You know, I mean, there's a line between, you know, you listening to funk record from back in the 70s and go, wow, that mistake they made is so beautiful. It's so, did he mean to do that? Was it a mistake or was it, I mean, and then you realize that they didn't have a choice to go back, but would they have if they had the tools we have?
I don't know. Yeah. And then it gets to like you know, if they could have, would it have made their albums any greater than they already were? That, you know, the ones that we respect and admire and love so much today. It's like, yeah, if they had all those tools, then would it? I don't know. Who knows? It does. So sparks coming from your fingers, though. That just totally make like the number one person that comes to mind, or the number one musician that I am super self-absorbed with right now is Jacob Collier. I don't know if you know Jacob Collier, but
that name sounds familiar.
Oh my gosh. I think this guy might be the most talented musician of the generation right now. And super young. He's like in his 20s. He started working with like Herbie Hancock and Quincy Jones and Snarky Puppy and like all these awesome, amazing artists that when he was like in his teens and stuff. So for all of you guys who just want to be completely musically inspired by a super unique individual who plays every instrument known to man and makes the most just wildly creative stuff and improvs it all, Jacob Collier. For example, a couple days ago, he just put out, it was like the middle of the night and he streamed him playing at the piano, just Hallelujah, playing the Hallelujah song. And just improvs it. And it's just like musically, it's just unbelievable. There's a few like super rare talents like that who are like, you know, it is like sparks come off their finger and they just, whatever they play is just naturally unbelievable. But it's a very, 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 very small group of savants.
Yeah.
The rest of us are just have to keep trying our best.
I have to check out the Jacob Collier. I just looked him up on YouTube. He's got a YouTube channel. Oh yeah. Maybe I'll link.
Musical inspiration. This guy is just off the charts. So
yeah. You know who I've been obsessed with lately is Victor Wooten.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I mean, just a freak of nature, man. He's not only is he a phenomenal bass player, but he's a brilliant man.
Yeah.
Like his take on music is so wise, you know, about and the way he explains it. I just love hearing. It seems like every YouTube video that I pick up, you know, of course I love to hear him play, but I love to hear him talk. You're a bass player, right?
Yeah, I'm a bass player, and I saw a video of him playing at at NAM with some guy in a booth. NAM show, they post all these videos like when the artists are walking around and stuff, and just have him. He was playing bass with another guy, and he was just talking about how you can, when you're speaking language, like when your music is like saying something, you can get away with breaking all the rules or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, he's very, like, he knows his fundamentals so well, and he's like, here's the establishment of like a fat beat, so or just a great lick. So he'll just slap a little lick, that just makes it sound so perfect, and it's just so simple, just 3-6-2-5-1 kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then he'll have this other bass player next to him. He's like, just play this groove or play this riff, this simple chord progression, and then he just like breaks all the rules, plays every in key note, and goes all over the place and inverts everything, and it's just, but the way he does it and expresses it, he's like, I'm just trying to say something, and if I go like, how you doing today, and he says that on the bass, and he's like, how you doing today, and he like plays it like that, then it's like he play whatever he wants over something that's like foundational, and just make it work so well. And it's just tying together like music as a language and how we speak and stuff. You can speak in all kinds of ways. It doesn't have to be eloquent.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be beautiful. It doesn't have to be like sound like a certain dialect or something. Everybody has their own expression, but start like, let's all start on some common ground and like figure out where our common ground is, whether it's musically or as people. Like, what is our common ground here? Like, we're all gathered here to talk about broadcast sound, and like as mix engineers, we all have this this audio backbone and things we care about, like gain structure and EQ and the tools we have at our disposal. But then once we all have like talked about it for a while, and we know and we have a commonality and like, okay, here's how gain structure is, then now we can break all the rules. We can do whatever we want. He's good.
I heard a video of him doing it, and it seemed he was in Germany, and he was like, oh, somebody tell me all the notes in an A minor scale, and they'd name them off, and he's going, okay, it's these notes right here, right? Yeah, he said, I'm gonna play every note but those notes. I'm gonna play the 5 notes in between, and he played a solo over a loop that was the 5 wrong notes that were not in the scale.
Yeah,
and people were like, oh, that's so good, and then he said, I'm gonna play another solo with all the right notes in it. And then he started playing just messy all over the place and busy notes and stuff. And he said, which solo did you prefer? The one with the right notes in it, the one with the wrong notes in it? And because they were so different, because one was very tasteful but wrong notes, and one was very cluttered but with the right notes. And he said, if you're just playing the right notes, he said, anybody can play the right notes, but you have to play the groove, and you have to make people want to hear the groove, and then you can't play a wrong note. He said, you're only go ahead.
Oh, that's exactly it. That's exactly what he was doing in this other video that I was talking about, where he's breaking all the rules, but does it in such an expressive way that it creates a better thing ultimately. So it kind of circles right back around to like what we were talking about just with like post-production, and how like, I think if what we're really trying to go for is like the best expression, like if we have a really clear picture and vision of if whatever band you're working with out there in the stream, whether it's in church music or in studio music or folk, country, rock, whatever, when your band really knows, like has a vision of their identity in what they're going for, then how they express what they're playing comes through is so much stronger. It's like, I think of it as the equivalent of like the signal to noise ratio.
Mm-hmm.
Like that if they play a wrong note or have a flub, it's a moot point. Like, no, at the end of the day, that's not what people even process in their brains. Just like, when you have, if you're recording a trumpet and that's mic'd right here, and there's some fan in the background, that fan might be there, but when you hear the trumpet, that ratio is so much greater that you're not going to be thinking about the fan. Not that we shouldn't try to turn the fan off, but like right now, what we're recording today, like we're getting ready to film. There's like a whole bunch of people on stage. Like there shouldn't be a bunch of people on stage. There's no more than 10 people on stage right now.
And you're 6 feet apart.
Yeah. pushing the limits, but just up to it. There's a lot of bleed like right now in this upright piano, but it's like when the piano is playing expressively in the spots that it needs to play in, we're just working with it. It's great.
Right. Well, walk me through what you guys are going to do today, because we're about to have to do another batch of Corona worship sets.
Yeah. Oh, nice. So it's been tough. We're definitely up to the wire and stressed because there's a couple different ways to approach it. And we're trying to be as current and hey, Mark, trying to be as relevant as possible to just being adaptable to like the situation of the week. So like if as a country we're feeling like if it's a really like if this was our darkest week of of this and have the most amount of deaths, we want to be careful like the optics on how what we're streaming as like trying to be an organization that's caring about people well and trying to like provide hope to people and just some sense of community and that we're in this together and we have hope with Jesus and stuff. If we're trying to get that across, then like do we play like we're doing a Foo Fighter song, for example? Do we play it in a rock and roll like LED wall flashing lights, just in your face kind of way, followed by a funny, humorous video? Or do we do it in a way that is acoustically driven and more like lyrically focused? The song is called what is it? The times that we're in. Is that what it's called? I'm supposed to be producing this song. I should.
I won't tell.
Times like these. Sorry.
Okay.
Times like these. So Foo Fighters, times like these. So it's like, are we going to go with like a more lyrically driven thing followed by a more serious like video that's just like, hey, like in what is the right word? Like more just like hope, solace, just more of an intimate thing? Or are we going for like fun and rock and roll? I don't know. So it turns out we have to record both versions today.
Oh, really? That's interesting.
Yeah. So that's just one song. Yeah. So we have a song like that, and then we have kind of a special song it's called Peace Be Still. That's like a song for like coming out of a talk, coming out of a message that ends on a positive note, and then kind of two standard worship songs, church songs, and then we also have a song, a Noah Gunderson song called Jesus Jesus, and it's a really tough song. It's kind of like a song of like kind of an outcry. Basically, this guy's going like, Jesus, if you actually exist, maybe you should call me up and we should have drinks and maybe we can work it out, what's wrong with the world and stuff. So that's kind of the context of the song, and it fits perfectly in the message. And so we recorded it in a room that was just like a black room with a light overhead, and it's just a guy had just one acoustic guitar, and so we did that yesterday. But we were also going to try it in a parking garage. So just kind of like because some of the lyrics are like, we live in this beautiful place, but how did all of your people mess up the world? Like, why is the world such a messed up place? And how did it get to be like this? And so we were kind of thinking of like, what is the kind of these like desolate settings that so we were thinking like empty airport, parking garage, like areas like
hard to find.
Kind of have that vibe to it. So anyway, so I have a Sound Devices 688 recorder. So like it has 6 mic pre's on it, and it can be, and we have like a battery module for it and stuff. So I was trying to go like, okay, how can I get a DI from this guitar? I have a couple Sheps mics. I was gonna like, mic the guitar, have some more like a wider pair of like spaced omnis kind of thing, some room mics, and then a vocal mic. We have a large diaphragm on its vocal, and so recording it with a portable recorder, and then we bring it back in here to broadcast and like mix it in the studio and try to pull that together. The interesting thing there is like when I have like the guitar mics, and you can totally speak into this. I have these like a stereo set of guitar mics on the guitar, and then I also have a large diaphragm on his vocal, and it's all live at the same time. Like he's not singing separately. So when he kind of sways, just even subtle movements, how he's picked up in this guitar mic closest to like the 12th fret versus this large diaphragm mic here, it kind of goes back and forth. And I'm trying to decide, is that a cool thing or is it like distracting? And I'm not sure. I don't know if you've dealt with that, but that's another song.
Yeah, I mean, I have an opinion on that, but it all depends on the situation that you're in. Like, if the vocal is going to need to be like edited or touched up, then it completely changes it.
Yeah.
But otherwise, if it's somebody that you're not going to, you're just going to choose not to do that. I think everybody wants their vocal kind of touched up these days because we have such an ear for perfection.
We just talked about that.
Yeah, but I recorded a record several years ago, and honestly, I think it's one of the best vocal sounds because it did leak into the guitar mic. It made the vocal sound bigger.
Bigger. That's kind of what I thought too. Yeah, I thought it was cool, that sound. But that was okay. You totally just spoke to like what my nervousness was there. It was like, are we okay with the vocal performance here? Because if we are, let's work with it. But if we're going, that felt shaky, or that inflection was wrong, or that, we got to, when you tune one microphone, but you hear it in another microphone, that gets real shaky.
If I'm not mistaken, I can't remember who it was, but the producer was telling me that they had a singer-songwriter. It might have been Jonny Lang. Where he was singing into a mic and had an acoustic, and then he did then he wasn't doing the acoustic, and they noticed a difference in the vocal sound, and it was like, put the acoustic mic back up, and they put the acoustic mic where it was normally, and they let him sing into both mics, and it was just they loved the vocal sound more, so they used two mics. So I wouldn't worry about the bleed. The bleed's only bad if it sounds bad, right?
That's what we were talking about the other night with piano and drums and stuff. It's like, let's see how the piano fits in the context of the music. And if you know your music and you're like, yeah, the piano sound that we're getting out of this is fine and usable, then if you have drum bleed, then you have drum bleed. Let's figure out how to work with it.
Right.
You guys,
cool.
Introduce you real quick. Sam Fisher is here.
Hey, Sam.
Hey. Sam is our broadcast engineer. And Kevin's here. So, and I don't know how many people you have on this, Kevin, but it's we're talking.
Not a ton right now. I'm experimenting with how to promote this thing, and I didn't send an email or like a pre-tweet or anything like that. So not a ton of people on right now, but hopefully more people watching later on.
It's great. So Sam is our broadcast engineer, and he is a music aficionado as well, and all of the things that we just talked about as far as post-production and musician insecurities and putting our best foot forward and trying to do the best we can with the tools we have. That's kind of what Sam helps me work through every day. So,
well, hey, let's. By the way, I would love to chat with Sam and find out kind of his workflow someday about, because I know he started mixing there at Flatirons last year sometime.
Yeah.
And you had just gotten this, what's the name of the board? It always escapes me.
So we got a console by a German company called Lavo. It's LAWO. So.
Why do they pronounce it that way, I wonder?
It's like a Volkswagen.
Well, that's for another podcast or something like that, I guess. But yeah, I'd love to figure out or talk to you. And maybe, you know what, when the ban is lifted, maybe I'll come to Flatirons and you can show me your workflow, because I'd love to.
Yes.
I'd love to. We'll do one from there.
We want you here so bad. So we're trying to. I've been thinking about and trying to figure out how can we get some people to stop by and give us some insights, and you're at the top of that list for sure. I'd love to have you help us put together a couple mixes and check our workflow, and it's the iron sharpens iron, right?
Yeah, I would be honored, and yes, this iron would definitely be sharpened by the Flatirons.
the Flatirons iron sharpening.
Yeah.
It's
maybe I'll pick up one of those.
It sharpens us every day.
Maybe I can pick up one of those hats when I come. Sharp.
For sure. Is there anything technical or anything like specific broadcast wise you want to talk through? We covered kind of a lot of kind of our heart and music, and kind of our how our roles correspond with the musician and stuff. But,
I mean, I would just be interested to know if I were going to ask you, like off the cuff, hey, give me one like super tip for mixing good broadcast audio. What would that be?
Number one tip for broadcast audio. It's hard to say like number one tip. The first that comes to mind, at least in this single moment right here, right now, is and I'm actually saying this because I'm trying to remind myself of it, is listen on multiple sources. You know, like we have a great set of ATC monitors in here, and they're phenomenal and detailed, but then you throw on headphones, don't neglect the headphones. You know, and you're like, wow, this sounds different. Yeah. And then you go to your car, and then you go to your home stereo, and then you go to your TV, and you go to your laptop. And the number one goal of the broadcast mix is that it translates well in all environments. So you can get it to sound amazing through your speakers, but all that matters is it sounds as best as it possibly can on your iPhone and your computer and your sound bar and everything else. So
yeah, I see my little girl.
That.
I know.
It's just
well,
it's just
maybe
you just have to do it.
There may be, but I haven't bought it yet. There's let's see, Altiverb has a new speaker emulator. Have you heard about it?
I saw something about that. Yeah,
I would love to check that out, and just to be able to flip through. But then you're listening to it on one source, so I'm not sure if.
It's an interesting concept.
Yeah.
Whatever you can do workflow wise to figure out a easy way, like with a phone or something. Even if you have a dedicated like player that's just like a non-MP, like a an uncompressed file player that you can just easily plug in anything. Worth investing in. Sam, do you have one? Do you have a number one?
That's a great tip.
Number one broadcast thing. Make sure it sounds good everywhere.
I feel bad for my daughter. She walks around and listens to music like this.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh my God. Yeah. Why do I work so hard? Just make it sound good on an iPhone, you'll be good. So, did Sam have anything?
Well, he echoed the same. I'll give him another second to think about if he has a secondary point to that or another point. But what is amazing to me is like even listening on the iPhone, like as tiny of a speaker it is, it's like if you can't get it loud enough, or there's something, if you have a good mix, there's a way that it's weird to me. It's like I guess I should say, if you have a bad mix, you can still somehow hear that on the iPhone. Like, so I guess my point is don't underestimate, like, you can't underestimate just because like most people are going to listen to this on an iPhone or with AirPods or whatever. It's like, it's still like, it goes back to what we were talking about, the communication, the communicated message. If you have Victor Wooten playing bass and you play that on your phone, the musical language, the strength, the clarity, the pronunciation of his musical language is so clear that will still shine through on the iPhone somehow, like it does. So just kind of even though we're mixing levels and tones and stuff, at the end of the day, like we really have an important role in producing, being able to bring out like, okay, what is being spoken here, and how do you get out, like, what is the main point of what we're trying to project? Because somehow, like, you'll still psychologically, when you hear anything on your iPhone, you'll be like, oh, that's what I heard. Anybody could summarize, oh, I heard this on, when I listened to that. And and on an iPhone, you may not hear 100 other things at the same time. You may only hear one thing, but it is a good test of going, was the most important thing heard?
Right. I believe in the 80-20 rule on even listening to monitors. And that is, find what it is in the monitor that it speaks. Like every monitor has a story to tell. Everybody tells a story a different way. The victim will tell the story a different way than the person who they're talking about.
Right.
So when you're listening to NS10s, you listen to their story, and their story is usually, is the snare drum in the right place?
Right.
And is the vocal in the right place?
Right.
If you're listening to the Barefoots, you're listening to the low end and the detail.
Yeah.
If you're listening on headphones, you're listening for, width and figure out in my car, which is my favorite monitors to drive around in, or the only ones I can drive around in.
It's the ones we know the best.
Yeah.
Everybody knows the best.
Believe it or not, my Honda Element tells me if there's too much compression on something.
Totally.
You can hear it. Yeah.
Totally. And it's a good volume check too, because I'm like, when my stereo's at 15, if that music's cranking, we're at a good level.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah.
I have to turn it up to 20, then it's too quiet.
Right. Exactly. Man, Bryce, it's been great talking to you, man. Let's catch up again as soon as we can. I hope you have a good video shoot, audio recording today.
Yeah, thanks. It's going to be an adventure. We're very excited for it. Feel free. Sam is more, I'm just speaking for Sam. He is more than available and willing to set up a time if you ever want to go through like some specific workflow stuff. It's kind of interesting on this console too, because it's probably one that most aren't familiar with, but it really shows like, okay, conceptually, are we doing things similarly or differently than you would on your console? I think it's easy sometimes when we see something that's familiar to just go, oh yeah, well that's the way I do it, or I do it differently because of, but I enjoy talking to people about just, it really gets us back to mixing when people can't go like, oh, well, I would just group together those things on this DCA on this console. It's nice to be able to just talk audio fundamentals. Anyway, I'm speaking for Sam, but he would love to talk through some stuff sometime, and I'm always available. And whether it's technical or musical or our hearts for mixing or our most inspiring artists or people that inspire us, let's do it.
Okay. Sounds good, man. Yeah. And tell Sam I'll be in touch, definitely.
Okay. All right.
All right. Thanks for coming, man.
Thanks for your time today. Take care, everybody.
All right. Take care. Bye. Okay. All right. So that was Bryce Boynton and Sam. And we'll be talking to them again soon. But hey, thanks for tuning in today. And hopefully we got some questions answered. I got some questions answered. I wanted to talk to them about their broadcast workflow. And I was going to look through some of the questions real quick. Matt David said, do you have any tips on mixing stand-up bass? Mixing stand-up bass. Yes. There are certain notes on a stand-up bass that are louder than others for some reason. If you mic both F-holes, I found that it becomes like one side of the stand-up bass will project certain notes and the other side will project other notes. That's just my observation. And I found that when I put a mic in front of each F-hole, it tends to balance out a little bit. Stand-up bass, let's see. Just be careful with the filtering. Be real gentle on the compressor. 4-to-1 usually. And we're going to talk to Matt Butler in the morning about some transparent compressor ways. So come back and check out tomorrow. But hey, for now, I'm going to let you guys go. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. It means the world to me. Thanks for the comments and the love in the comment section. And I'll see you again tomorrow, okay? 8 o'clock Pacific and 11 o'clock Eastern time, 10 o'clock in Nashville, 9 o'clock in Flatirons or Lafayette, Colorado. So I'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.